All right, guys, welcome to season two, episode six of the Jumping the Rail podcast. This is Mark Rebin coming to you from my palatial estate in Champaign, Illinois, and we have, as promised, a guest co-host joining us, and he is one of my buddies from the music world and also from just our mutual love of professional wrestling. My buddy, the Italian stallion, Gary Vecellio. And Gary, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, I have a migraine, so I'm kind of in the dark and I'm kind of squinty, but I'm here.
Well, we're glad you're here. And there's nothing better for a migraine than talking to me. I know you've always thought that way.
You've never made my head hurt.
I'll be gentle with the puns today. Uh, See, even with the new format, we're doing this on YouTube now. We're not doing it on Facebook Live anymore. And Dwayne Carter is right on the ball. He's the first one in. So how you doing, Dwayne? And got some stuff to talk about. Not horribly newsworthy week, but the last couple weeks has been kind of interesting. Uh, I guess the first thing we got to talk about is apparently the Elite are coming back to AEW sometime soon on the TV, but Mr. Punk will not be, from all reports, Gary. I guess old Phil overstayed his welcome in AEW.
uh, here's what I'm here. It, it's not conspiracy theory. This is more who's in AEW and who's getting more power in AEW, which is Chris Jericho. And if there's been anybody over the last decade who's been able to keep his mouth shut when he's working an angle, it's Chris Jericho. And people credit him for all these surprises and changing his character. There's still a big part of me that I think what happened was Punk and MJF were supposed to feud
Yeah,
when MJF came back. I think Punk got hurt. And since we haven't heard really anything about that, and you would figure they would at least put a press release out about that you had tricep surgery, I think they made a last minute decision to work an angle. And I really don't think Omega was quite ready. He
no,
didn't look great
just those
by any
matches he
stretch
had.
of the
Yeah, he looked
imagination.
off.
I and they haven't actually said they released Ace Steel yet. It's just
Yeah, they said
people.
they let him go.
What?
I heard that they did let him go.
Well, have you heard it from AEW or from Ace Steel?
AEW, I believe, did put out a press release that they released him.
Yeah, I hadn't seen a press release from them. I just heard Meltzer talking about it.
Well, he's such a reliable resource, Dave
Yeah.
Meltzer.
But I still think a lot of it is allowing the internet wrestling community to run wild because how many people actually thought the MJF promo was a real thing? There was a lot of people. I never
Oh yeah,
bought it for a second.
no, he wouldn't have gotten
And,
away with half of that if it was actually for real.
but I think Punk realized he was hurt at the end of that match. They went and they're like, "What can we do with this?" Then they're like, "Well, Omega's not 100%. What if we work an angle? Because Punk's going to be out for a while with the tricep." Nobody has said anything. And if the past has dictated anything, it's Punk can't keep his mouth shut. So why would anybody think during this time he would just go radio silent? And which is what he's done. And Omega and the Young Bucks haven't said anything.
No,
I can't imagine there's any kind of gag order or anything. I think it's an angle. I really do. I think when Punk comes back, there's going to be a built-in heat angle. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think AEW's whole direction right now is shut up and let people believe whatever they want to believe, which is great because you haven't seen that in wrestling since like what, Kaufman Lawler?
uh, I
Like
think I would go
people,
back ECW when the Sandman got blinded by Dreamer,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he stayed home for a month and didn't leave his house until he came back.
Yeah. Um, I think that Tony Khan, I don't think he's playing like 3D chess or anything, but I think Jericho and him talk a lot. And Jericho is smart enough to realize that, hey, we have to do something different, which is kayfabe. How, how long has it been since kayfabe has been used in wrestling? Like the early 90s? They just abandoned it. Everybody goes online now, talks about how they love each other, and
Hmm.
they, and you see MJF, which well, we're going to talk about anyway, but like he just shuts up. Like he doesn't leave his house. Like when he no showed that signing,
Uh-huh.
he didn't go anywhere. He and went after his little pipe bomb promo, he didn't go do appearances, he didn't work a show, he didn't go online. He just let it play out. And everybody just was clamoring for somebody to say something. And of course you had wrestling lumen, these Alvarez and all those guys saying, "Oh no, this wasn't a work. There's no way this was a work. It was a complete work." And I like it. I like not knowing exactly what's going to happen, like every 5 seconds. I mean, every once in a while it's neat for something to get spoiled, but in this day and age of people binging television shows, and like there are people who won't watch a new show. They just won't. They'll wait till it's over and then go watch every episode of it. So I think it's a good tactic. I think AEW, if this is what they're doing, which is just bringing kayfabe back, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I've got my criticisms about AEW, but I'm with you. That's one of the things I think they're getting right is they're kind of bringing the mystery back to it. And yeah, it's like between MJF and Jericho on their social, they never break character, which
Yeah,
is unheard of.
yeah. I've
Usually,
watched I've watched plenty of MJF interviews. He doesn't give them anything. He just stays in character. There are even very few like people who will talk about what he's like backstage. And there have been a few people that said he's a sweetheart backstage. But and I don't doubt it. I don't think he's really that guy, but he's so good at being that guy that it becomes believable because he doesn't let you believe anything else. And that's what it's supposed to be. That's why people used to fall in love with wrestling. They would fall in love with the characters.
yeah, the character is different, but it's very similar to how Mark Calloway would do the Undertaker. It
Yeah.
was he rarely went out in public without being in character, like to events. Never went to the Hall of Fame,
No.
and yeah, up until that documentary came out last year, nobody really saw much of his personal life.
And yeah, that's in he was able to ride that mystique to a Hall of Fame career. Plus the fact that he was an incredible worker,
Well, yeah.
the best big man to ever exist. It just he could do anything. And but I saw in our notes the MGF stuff. Are you talking about what they're doing now? That's kind of sliding him from being like solid heel into being like a stone cold like heel.
Yeah, I just kind of want to get into everything that's gone on since he came back to All Out. With when he came back, they were trying to make him the heel. Was supposed to be Punk, you know, but
Yeah,
then yeah, after all that went down, then they have to pivot and put the belt back on Moxley and have him go against MJF coming up here at pay per view. But it seems like no matter what MJF does, he's getting cheered, even though for all intents and purposes, he should be the biggest heel in the business.
yeah. I mean, that's just wrestling fans being wrestling fans,
Yes.
just being contrary. I mean, people still cheer Jericho, and he's does nothing but heel stuff.
that
It's
damn
because they
song.
love Jericho. They love MJF, and because they love MJF. And I don't know if I can still see it maybe a swerve coming from this whole like breakup with Stokely Hathaway. It may be one of those like another double swerve like with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. Like just to make you think that MJF is really going to stand on his own, and then he's just going to cheat to beat Moxley at the pay per view. I mean, that's completely possible, which would make him a bigger heel, but people are still going to cheer him, so it doesn't really matter. He is so good at being hated that people started to love him, and
Yeah,
you.
definitely.
I think they've realized you eventually have to kind of lean into that because you can only say so long that don't cheer me, I'm a bad guy. People are just going to cheer you. So I mean, they might
Either
as
way,
well lean in.
this is awesome. I can actually show you guys comments on the screen. See, Dwayne, he's on a roll. MJF is a prick, and fans are fickle, is what he's saying, and he's not wrong on either
Fickle.
one.
No, fans are fickle.
They are indeed.
I I mean, there are plenty of things that AEW is done stupid, just absolutely ignorant. It's,
Where do I begin?
like I really don't like the way. I mean, there's parts of me that like the way they booked Brian. It might be partly him just saying I don't really care about a title, but I mean, but especially like the women's division, that's still a train wreck. You have all these women that came in that were hot, like Ruby Riott should have had a belt. Uh, She was so hot when she came in. Plus, she can work. Plus, she can talk. Athena came in. She can work. She can talk. Apparently, she's drawing heat from stiff matches. I don't. I watched the match. It was a little snug, but
Yeah,
I've
Little Snug's okay.
I've seen I've seen worse. But
Yeah. Well, shit.
honestly,
Io
man,
and Oscar last night were getting super snug during the main event.
oh yeah, like if you've ever watched it on Io Shirai versus like Kari Sane match from Japan, man,
Those
not
two
only is
people,
it real good, it's real snug. By snug, I mean like all
like,
Japan.
make me cry.
Yeah, all Japan snug.
Yeah.
Like it's just they're just hitting each other.
It makes me
So I
think of
mean,
the Asuka with Suzuki in Japan when they would
oh
go.
yeah, Asuka and Suzuki is a, but yeah, the whole MJF thing. I think they have to go with wherever he's going to take that, and I think people are right now riding just loving him. So they're going to cheer no matter what. It's just like the Acclaim, how they got over. They were supposed to be giant heels,
Yeah.
and then everybody started just following along with the Acclaim when they came out and cheering for them. And now they're the hottest tag team in AEW.
It's that
So
ridiculous scissoring business.
yes, and Billy Gunn has had a complete career resurgence. So I mean, there's a lot of things Tony does right,
Mm-hmm.
and if this whole kayfabe thing is his idea or Jericho's idea, and they're riding it, that continue it. Like I don't care if they ever break with it. I mean, that should be their thing. Like we're the wrestling promotion. You don't know what's going to happen, and eventually that will make people start watching because hey, I can't just predict what's going to happen here. I think it's a good idea. You have to be different somehow. You can't
Absolutely.
out money WWE. You can't out talent WWE. You can't go to places on the globe that they can't go. It's just an impossibility at this point. So you have to do something that they can't do, and WWE can't be the promotion that's all kayfabe. They have to have guys who are shaking hands and kissing babies and doing all this stuff. AEW doesn't have to do that. They don't have stockholders to be beholden to. They don't have major networks breathing down their neck for more screen time for Roman Reigns. So I think AEW needs to keep this up. I think they have to, just to be different.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, it's like you said. As far as like their storytelling and their booking, I have a lot of issues with. But it's like I said. I think I said this on the show I did with Marvin a few weeks ago. Tony's only been doing this for a little over 3 years. That's the blip on the radar in pro wrestling.
Yeah,
And you look at like a Vince McMahon who did it for 40 before he retired, and then it's so I think Tony's going to figure it out.
retired.
Yeah, finger quotes retired.
Yeah,
But I think Tony's going to figure it out. It's just he's my one complaint is he looks like a fan a little too much. I
yeah,
mean,
I,
it's okay to have the fans in mind when you're booking things. I mean, I wish that WWE had done that sooner. But
yeah,
he's it seems like he's pushing the people that they're getting really over with the fans for some of the wrong reasons. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
this isn't a knock on Orange Cassidy because he's a hell of a worker, but it's like he's getting over because of the hands in the pockets and then put
yeah,
the All Atlantic title on him. When I think, honestly, I think Pac should have held that belt for a year, if
yeah.
you
Because
ask me.
Pac's actually gonna like he's gonna travel the world anyway, and that's what I would have wanted for that title.
Yeah,
I would have wanted my title to be in every country you could be in. I mean, you don't have to defend that belt on TV every week because it's being defended in other nations. I mean, that's what I would have used it as. I can see wanting to give Orange Cassidy a title, and since you got Wardlow with the title, and he's apparently never going to lose it because he's invincible or whatever. Which, hey, don't he's a good worker. He's growing on me,
yeah,
but it's one of those situations where he was the biggest dude they had when they started. Now he's not the biggest dude they have. And so it's kind of when they keep throwing big guys at him, but like Hobbs or like Brian Cage or one of those guys, they're probably bigger and stronger than he is.
right.
So you're just making them look bad by just feeding them to the wood chipper that is Wardlow. So I would try to get a. I don't think he needs a title at this point. If you're just gonna feed people to him, take the title off and give it to somebody else.
Yeah,
Give it to Brian. Give it to somebody.
put on
You don't
Rico
have
for my money.
you, you don't have to even have him lose the title, have him stripped, or have something weird happen, or have somebody interfere. It doesn't have to be clean,
No,
but
it's better if it's not.
yeah, but yeah, I don't think he needs a title. He just needs to continue being him, being like a little mini Goldberg.
So what's your take on Warjo, Wardlow's tag team with Samoa Joe?
I There is nobody, well, not nobody. There are people, but depending on the night, Joe is probably the best guy in wrestling on the stick. Like, depending on the promo, like if you want information to get across, if you want somebody to look tough, if if you want somebody to deliver a promo that has some oomph behind it, but not yelling at you, and you know what's going on, it's Samoa Joe.
Yeah,
Joe is a great promo. He is as legit as you can get in the business. He can work. He's lost a step, but he's old and older, and so it's not a bad idea to put him with Wardlow. It's not a bad idea to give him a belt that he just kind of shows up with, because it's still going to give it gravity. But I don't I don't think Ward Joe's a bad thing for either one of them. It's kind of protecting Wardlow. It's protecting Joe. You got two guys out there. I don't know what they're going to do with like Brian Cage and all the guys that they're trying to build for Ring of Honor, or if Tony's ever going to get Ring of Honor back off the ground. But I don't mind War Joe. I think it works for both guys.
Yeah, I mean, for it gets them on TV, and like I said, and it's not like they're putting them with bad workers. They're putting them with the Kingdom for one thing,
Yeah.
which is I'm tickled by because I've always been a fan. And I know they're probably going right to Ring of Honor once their TV deal comes up. But I have hopes for the Kingdom in AEW because if I can take you back, Gary, to about 2015 ish. Remember, the Kingdom was a 3-man team back in Ring of Honor. Do you remember who the third man was?
No.
It was one Adam Cole, baby.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like young Cole is without a team right now because Bobby Fish is gone and O'Reilly's hurt.
Bob,
Cole's hurt
Bob-
too, to be fair.
Bobby Fish talked his way out of a job
He sure did.
because
He's like, Hunter will take me back by myself.
no,
But
because
no.
you're no,
And I like
no.
Bobby Fish, but
I
he's
I'm not a huge fan. I just don't get it. Like he's just a. If he were a bigger dude that kicked all the time, I could see it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the world's largest man, but if you're a professional wrestler and your whole gimmick is like you're a kickboxer, like, and you're like a little dude that comes back with kind of a pot belly, I don't care.
uh,
Like what which we've talked about before is my one of my big things with wrestlers. Like this is your job. Like your only job is to go out, wrestle in tights in front of people. You need to look intimidating. You need to look jacked. It's just kind of a prerequisite to me. Like I know there are people that are going to who would say like, "Oh, you're shaming body shame." I'm not body shaming you, but like if you were a firefighter, I would expect you to wear like your coat and your helmet because that's part of your job. Like, and if you're a worker and you're going out there and you're looking like soft and the other guy you're not is not like you just look bad in the match. Doesn't matter how well you work, you look bad. But yeah, Cole, he had was it concussion issues or something? I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
it helps if I unmute the microphone.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like I said, I'm brand new with
Yeah.
this software, so I'm going to make mistakes because I am not a smart man. So so that's apologies on my end. But yeah, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying here, Gary.
But
Turn back that echo.
Cole had concussion issues, right? So he's out until he's not out, basically. And then he had like I want to say he had some shoulder or arm problems to go along with that.
Yeah, a lot of shoulder problems.
So, I mean, just um, it sounds bad, but you're getting paid. Just heal.
Yeah,
You're going to have a spot,
yeah.
and I think there's a lot of grass is greener ideal idolizing wrestlers right now. I think there's a lot of guys who are looking at Hunter being in charge as like traveling back to Oz or something. They just want to click their ruby slippers together and go back home. And I don't think they'll run into the same thing that Tony's running into. Like he's got too many people. It's not just like too many people. He's got too many people that can actually do their job well.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches to be sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have a bunch of people if some of them are guys you can just job out. But if you can't afford to job people out because it's going to make them look bad, then you have problems like they're having now,
Well,
where you guys looking weak for no
s-
reason other than somebody has to beat somebody.
yeah. See, with me, it's like you could have this many guys, but just don't use them all every week. Like do like one week with, say, for WWE, have the Bloodline and Rollins and AJ and
Yeah,
all your some of your bigger names on one week, and then the next week pick a whole new card of wrestlers and just kind of rotate them. So number one, everybody's getting the same amount of TV time, and nobody's
yeah,
getting overused. Everybody's getting an angle. You know, because that's where Vince Russo got it right. Everybody always had an angle when he was writing for WWE.
yeah. I mean, prime example of like that is Sam. Well, you got the bloodline, but that you don't have everybody from the bloodline wrestling every week. It's going to be Sammy or Solo probably,
Usually, yeah.
and but that saves the other three as attractions,
Hmm.
which is good because the Usos were. I couldn't have cared less about an Usos match near the near about midway through their run because I saw them do everything an Uso could do. Anything an Uso is capable of doing, I've seen it done, and they're good. But I I think they're the best tag team in the world? No, that's FTR.
Now, Gary, I'm going to warn you that doesn't sound very Ucey of you right now.
No, I know I need to work on my Usiness.
Can you believe they got like over like 12 million hits online for that segment alone from Friday night?
I do because Sami Zayn's a genius.
He's awesome, isn't he?
But that's this is an angle that Vince started, but Vince would have killed weeks ago. And he would have Sami Zayn would have gotten beaten up by Roman Reigns or by the Usos. Kevin Owens would have came out. There would have been a tag match.
Hmm.
Sammy would have turned face again. He would have started tagging with Owens. Kevin Owens would have been relegated to the Shadow Realm or wherever.
Hang on, what reference is that? You're a comic book guy. Is that
Oh,
Superman?
that's Yu-Gi-Oh.
No, anime. Okay, I know nothing about anime.
So, but and so instead, Triple H is like, let's see where this goes. And now Sami Zayn is an honorary Uce who is having Jay work on his Uciness,
Uh huh.
who is repeatedly every week making those guys break character because they're having fun. It's adding another layer to the whole dynasty thing that was, to me, I know there are other people that dig it, but it was so stale to me. Because Roman's been champion forever. And I just, once again, don't care anymore. Because every Roman Reigns match is another, it's solid, but it's just another Roman Reigns match. And
Yeah.
Paul Heyman's as good as you can get on the mic, but you can only do so much. So adding Sami Zayn to that mix to be more to do Usify the Uses is genius. So where it ends, I don't know. I'm guessing Jay will somehow cost. If I were booking it, Jay and Jimmy would lose the tag titles to somebody, but it'll be Jay's fault. And then to try to make up for it, he tries even harder and loses Roman at least one of the belts. I mean, The Rock's going to come back probably, so I would have Jey Uso cost Roman one of the titles to The Rock, or The Rock come out and Jey like side with him, something. I don't think The Rock needs a belt. I think he needs more than one match. But you got to get him involved in that match somehow. But you're not going to put the belt on Logan Paul.
No,
Just not going to do it. So I don't know who it'll be. It'll be Drew, maybe Killer Cross. But
I mean, do they just hold out till Cody comes back?
what's that, Rumble time? He's supposed to be back.
Oh, around there, yeah.
Cody comes back, wins the Rumble,
That could work.
and I would have Rock if you could do it. I would have Rock versus Reigns at the Rumble,
Ugh,
and
I don't know about that.
I well, I mean that's only if you have more than one match with the Rock.
Yeah,
I I, I would want if I were fantasy booking it, it would be a best of three or at least a best of two. Like I would have the Rock win one and then go out on his back at Mania. Yeah, I'd have Reigns get it back at Mania, but I don't think I'd put the title back on him because I don't think Reigns needs a title once he's beat the Rock.
no.
He
Honestly, I don't
what?
think I could see Roman dropping the belt before he ever touches The Rock.
Oh yeah, he needs to. It just needs to be about control of the family.
Yeah.
That needs to be more important than any title. It'll be the title of tribal chief.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Just
think the
from head of
Rock
the
needs to
table.
beat him. Yeah, Rock needs to beat him at some point to become head of the table. Then he can send in. He just send in promos, and then doesn't even have to be there. And then Roman's got to get the tribal chief moniker back. The only way to do that is to beat Rocky, and so you do that at Mania. Because I don't.
Yeah, Dwayne, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Dwayne, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that it's going to be at WrestleMania if it happens. Just, sorry.
It's got to be a big enough payday to get the Rock out of bed.
Pretty much.
And the only
Speaking of,
guaranteed giant payday is going to be Mania. So
yeah. Yeah. So speaking of The Rock, what'd you think of his daughter popping up on NXT on last Tuesday?
I hope she's decent. She's been training a long time. I know she's had some injury issues. Her promo wasn't horrible. I know they're trying they're trying like an alternative type gimmick with her. I hope it works. I mean, it's always nice to see. What would she be, fourth generation?
Yeah, she's the first fourth generation wrestler in the history of WWE.
I hope she's
Or
good.
she will be once she has her first match.
Yeah, I hope she's good. I'm sure she's still green. I mean,
Oh,
she
I'm
will be.
sure.
Her dad was just a smidge green when he started.
Yeah, yeah, he was pretty green
So,
still.
so he he did okay. He did
Yeah,
all right.
he made a nice little name for himself there.
Yeah, yeah. He he made a few towns.
Hey, he fueled this podcast for almost a year with his Terramana,
Yeah,
so he has a special place in my heart. So yeah, yeah, I think if it's me, you have the Elimination Chamber. I think is happening before Mania again this year. I don't know if it's right before, but that's where I would have Roman drop the belt in a multi-man match. So
yeah.
he can have that excuse to where if he wants another shot, he's got it. But yeah, I mean, I would put the belt on if it's not Cody. I'm almost inclined to just put it on Rollins because there's really not anybody in the company having better matches than Rollins these days.
It's true.
Although, kind of going back to our thesis about heels, I don't know if Rollins is really a heel right now. He was working and acting like a babyface last night on Raw and
That
Wrestling Theory.
yeah, I see. We forgot completely about Theory. You know why? Because the WWE's forgotten completely about
Yeah,
Theory,
he's getting the cool down treatment right now.
and I could care less. I know some people are big fans of his. Like he's a pretty good worker. His promos aren't bad, but I've seen the cocky, good-looking guy gimmick before,
Yeah, he
and
also
Shawn Michaels did it better. Dolph Ziggler does it better.
yeah, Miz.
Miz does it better.
Grayson
So
Waller's doing it better. He's on NXT.
Grayson Waller is a great heel. Well, there's a pretty good heel.
Yeah, he's very unlikable.
I think he's probably unlikable in real life. Fairly sure he's a jerk in real life, but
He might
he's
be.
yeah. But, um, is there in WWE heels toxic attractions? Not bad as a heel
They're heels.
stable.
They're getting their cheers though because they're hot.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean Corbin,
He-
he's always going to be a nuclear heel because
That's
nobody likes
because,
Corbin.
that's because nobody likes Baron Corbin. I don't I don't think it's because he's a great heel. Just nobody likes him. He's just unlikable.
Yeah. What do you
Which
think
if
of him with JBL right now?
it's perfect because Baron Corbin, no matter how hard he tries, can't cut a promo. It always comes across flat.
Yeah,
So JBL can get you over.
he's
Let
coming.
JBL over.
JBL comes in 3 weeks ago and is already the best talker in the company
Yeah,
because he's
he's
not afraid to get heat, which is so important with a good heel.
yeah.
The only
I
thing
mean,
is, oh sorry,
Rhea Ripley may be the best heel you have right now
she might be the best character they got going right now.
because she's pretty dedicated to it. I have a feeling Beth Phoenix is going to show up at Crown Jewel.
You think so? I
That's
don't think
my
Edge is supposed to be there.
no, but they need somebody with AJ that's going to nullify Rhea, and
Yeah,
Beth
yeah,
can't
yeah.
take him out. And so, like, even if Edge isn't going to be there,
Beth could be there.
like Beth would show up. I can see that happening.
That makes a lot of
But
sense. Everybody's saying Charlotte, but no, it's got to be Beth. The
I
story's
don't
right
see
there.
Charlotte just coming in and deciding, hey, I'm going to take on Rhea Ripley. But Beth has a reason.
Yeah,
So,
and also for my money, I think Rhea needs to be the one to beat Bianca and take that women's title.
yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, you've, and rightfully so, Bianca's really good. She's really strong. She is really fast. She
She
is,
is everything she says she is.
yeah, she's gotten a lot better on the mic.
Hmm.
But I think Bianca makes a better heel than a
Oh,
face.
absolutely.
If you're going to keep her as champion, I don't like her as a face champion. Make her a heel.
Oh no, definitely super heel.
But I would. But if you have her versus Rhea, and then you still have somehow have Bianca being the stronger of the two, that's got to be impossible. Rhea Ripley is just a beast,
Well,
and she,
shit, you saw her body slam Gallows last week.
yeah, she's no joke.
That is not easy to do.
She's learned how to cut a promo. She's learned how to. Her facial expressions are great. So Rhea,
She's
I'm
making
not.
Dominic watchable. That's the most
Yeah,
impressive thing.
she. Tommy's mommy is making Dominic watchable. I think what they should do with Dominic is they need to really lean into the Eddie Guerrero was his actual father.
I've been saying this for weeks.
Yeah, for anybody on the internet watching us, we have not talked about this. We just think that much alike a lot of the time, but like it should be, it should be
It's
a
very
lot of.
true.
It should be. Hey, I know Ray. Dominic needs to start calling his dad Ray.
Yeah.
And think, well, Ray is over on SmackDown where he belongs. I wish my real dad was here though still, because Eddie was the greatest wrestler of all time. And
Start
just
start
start doing stuff like that,
just
where it's
start
just
calling
like,
yourself Dominic Guerrero.
yeah, start, yeah, exactly. Just start and say, I came to the Judgment Day and I'm turned over a new leaf, and to completely turn over a new leaf, I'm taking on a name I should have taken on years ago because it's the truth. And from now on, I'm Dominic Guerrero. And then that's going to gain nuclear heat
Oh yeah,
because people are going to be, oh, that's Eddie's name. It's like, no, no, Eddie's my dad.
you didn't
and
watch
then,
TV in 2005.
and then he can just show Ray being sad all the time. Nobody likes a sad Ray Mysterio.
Like, sad clown.
nobody likes nobody likes sad Ray Ray.
No. All right, so Dwayne has a question on here, and I'm gonna put it to you. He asked, "Do you like Nikki Cross going back to her old gimmick? That ASH gimmick wasn't working for me." Dwayne says, "I agree. I
AS
loved Nikki
awful.
Insanity.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
Nikki has a crazy, tough, strong chick is great. The almost a superhero thing was awful.
yeah.
That was a
Um,
that was a Vince McMahon wanting to sell merchandise, appeal to little kids,
well,
something.
now, hang on. Now, Nikki came up with that gimmick herself.
Well, then Vince should have been smart enough not to let her do it.
Yeah, and I think the worst thing they could have done was put that title on her after like a month with the gimmick. They just totally hot shot her, and then she can only go down from there. But the thing is, I like the crazy Nikki. It's just so cool to watch. But the crazy stops with the entrance. Like if you watched the match last night, it was just a normal wrestling match. She didn't have any of the crazy in her.
Yeah,
Oh, is that the cat?
that's one of them. Yes,
Which one is that one?
that's Cuddles.
Cuddles?
Yes.
You gotta come up with some less manly names for your cats, man.
Well, she's a she, so
Well, then it works. But
no, no, I agree with Dwayne. I like the Nikki ASA gimmick being gone. I was hoping Dewdrop would start getting a push because I know Hunter liked her,
hmm under
and
her
she's
original name,
yeah, Piper,
yeah,
because she's good and she's safe
yeah.
and she can cut a promo and she can be a heel.
hmm
So let her do any of that, and I because you have a bunch of really tiny women running around WWE, and you need somebody to be like your. You're not allowing Rhea Ripley to be your Andre the Giant. So what are you doing? Like
Right.
you have 5 foot tall Alexa Bliss becoming multi-time champion. She's now your tag team champion,
hmm
and you have Raquel. Was it Rodriguez now?
Rodriguez now, yeah.
Who is jacked and tall. You have Rhea Ripley, who is jacked and tall. You have
Bianca.
Bianca, who's jacked and tall, but you don't have them working each other. You don't, because if you're gonna, so it's just kind of a mess. I don't know if they're waiting for Charlotte to come back to take the belt off Bianca. Who is the other champion?
Right now it's Ronda.
Oh, yeah. See how easily I forget that because I just don't care.
I'll tell you what I do
I
like though. It seems like they're working their way to having Ronda and Baszler as a duo again.
wouldn't mind them as tag champions.
No, me either.
I wouldn't mind at this point if they had like a mid card title for the women because you do have a lot of women now, and then I would put it on Baszler and Rousey. I mean, I would make them kind of the bloodline. If you're gonna push somebody, might as well do it that way.
Right. But
Plus, I Shayna Baszler is a much better worker than Ronda Rousey. I also wouldn't mind if Rousey put over Baszler.
see, that
Yeah,
was my original idea was with Rousey as champion, then have a feud with Shayna, and it could go either way. Ronda could be the heel, or Shayna could be the heel, and they could have some really good matches with the just going just go stiff, submissions, all that stuff,
yeah,
and they wouldn't be afraid to lay it in.
yeah. I would see. It, I know you. I know they want to put Liv over, and Liv's not a bad worker, and her gimmick's not horrible. But I would have had Shayna win the Money in the Bank, and then Rousey get blindsided by her because she's not expecting her best friend to cash in.
Yeah,
I would have had her cash in on at a very inopportune time, and Rousey just be completely blindsided by it, and then you could just have them work each other.
yeah, I'd be okay with that. Dwayne, of course, is suggesting they bring back Nia Jax. Uh,
I know Dwayne loves Nia Jax, but
yeah,
she she
sucks out loud. You can say it.
oh, she's awful. Not bad on the mic.
She killed Shayna's run.
She almost killed Becky.
Yeah,
I mean, she was as legit as you can get. She was strong. She was pretty fast.
yeah, just
She
unsafe
just
from
never.
everything they say.
She just wasn't super safe by any means. I don't
Yeah,
think she'll. I don't think she's looking to come back. I think she's kind of in a burnout phase. I don't think they would have her back right now. There's no real place for her.
no,
I mean, but she was just another. She was another like Big Show. Like we've always talked about. Never understood why they never pushed Big Show. Never gave him more titles. He was well over 7 foot tall. Could move. Could talk. Could be a heel or face, and yet they did nothing with him. Nia Jax is the same way.
hmm but with her
Big girl.
85 face turns.
Yeah. This did never did anything with her. And so why would you want her back if you're still not going to do anything? As soon as Charlotte comes back, the world's going to revolve around her anyway. Her and Becky.
It usually does.
And Lord knows if Sasha ever comes back, what they'll do with her.
Yeah, safe money. She'll be right back in the title hunt, but I would like to see them pull the trigger on getting Naomi and Sasha back in, and even if it's not as a tag team, get
I'm sure Bailey is going to take the belt off of somebody.
yeah. I don't know if it'll be Bianca. It might be, but I don't know if they would do that at Crown Jewel. They might, or if they would
That's
save
true.
that. Yeah, Dwayne says have Nia Jax feud with Shayna Baszler. Would have that would have been all right about 2 years ago, but it kind of lost its luster after the tag run, I think.
Yeah.
But that's
I
just me.
think, I think that's what they were going for, and then it's
Now
just
you got dumb. Yeah, that makes sense because yeah, it seemed like they were getting ready for that. But anyway, so moving on, just got so much cool stuff here. So the big question is, where have all the heels gone? That's kind of what we're focusing on. And is there because if you look at it, just every company's top heels are getting cheered too much because you got Jericho and MJF and AEW, you got Rollins, you got Roman and WWE, and it just seems like they've forgotten how to be an effective heel, which is what JBL's been doing as a mouthpiece. So if you had a choice, Gary, who would be your top heel knowing that they could just piss everybody off without any second thoughts?
um if they had like carte blanche to do whatever they wanted.
hmm
Um I mean, it's easy to say MJF because he's just a good heel, but honestly, and I'm not a big Punk fan, but Punk right now coming back as a heel, if he does come back, he could be the biggest heel in wrestling because you work that whole angle with him like bad mouthing
Angle.
Cabana. You have him talk like when he comes back. You have him like brag about like how he took, he beat up the Elite by himself, like him and Ace Steel and Larry the dog beat up beat up the Elite.
Oh, Larry.
You just have him come back and just beat Punk, who is widely known as kind of a jerk.
No.
Just allow him to do that,
I'll
and
tell you.
don't like shy away from it. And when Tony like just every week have Tony's come out and fine him, and Punk just be like, here's the money.
Just pull a big wad out of his pocket.
Just pull it out of his pocket and say, how much is it this time? Here you go, and just have make it not even register that he cares. You just have him come out, cut promos. He doesn't have to wrestle every week because I don't really think I have never like not like he's a good worker, but I've never saw him as best in the world type worker.
No.
He's solid, but on the mic and character wise, he's always been good. So if you allowed him to come back and just be a heel, I think he could be nuclear hot.
Yeah, I'd agree
But
with that.
nobody right now, because like you were saying, like no, you don't have anybody who is just a heel. They're always like a tweener, or you got a bunch of people singing their song or
Mm-hmm.
cheering for them. Because Jericho's doing just completely despicable stuff. He's beating up announcers. He's beating up uh, old
Road agents.
retired wrestlers and getting cheers every week. People are singing his song still because they love Chris Jericho. And so you can't make him, there is no way to make him a heel. They tried. They tried him coming out and not allowing people to sing the song, changing the song, not playing it. People didn't care.
Yeah.
So, and Rollins, I just don't think he's, with the character he's got right now, I don't think he's got heel, like nuclear heat ability. Roman's been around, he's been champion too long. They, I don't know. It
I'll tell
doesn't
you. There's.
even Brock Lesnar at this point, people like him now. So I don't know.
Yeah. There's
I don't
one
know if
guy
you
in AEW that I think is getting there as far as being a despicable heel, and that's Swerve Strickland.
yeah.
He's
Well,
been doing some
he's
pretty shitty things lately.
breaking Billy Gunn's finger with vice grips because hey Mark, guess what's not apparently illegal? Kidnapping and torture.
Yeah.
It's what I love about wrestling. It's like, how do we make this guy a better heel? Oh, we'll have him kidnap this person. Basically, hold them for ransom. Well, are the cops called? Oh no, no, we'll just have a match next week because that's what you do when somebody kidnaps somebody. You don't call the police because you have video proof that they did it and their own admittance.
Yeah.
They're
Nobody's
like, yes,
denying it.
nobody's denying. So, so Billy Gunn doesn't walk directly out of there because Swerve's going to let him go because that's what they do, or somebody's going to save him. And as soon as he gets out, he's just going to be like, you know what? Instead of sending you to jail for the rest of your life, I'm just gonna wrestle you in a match.
Not even getting fired.
Let's not get you fired from the company for kidnapping me. No, no. I'm just going to wrestle you for very small stakes. Oh, wrestling.
Greatest show on earth, is it not?
It's only better when somebody steals somebody else's wife, and then or there's like a wedding that gets ruined, and then there's no like lawsuit about like loss of like
Destruction
defamation
of
of
personal property.
character or destruction of personal property or anything. It's just oh, I'll see you at the pay-per-view.
How many times have you seen a wrestler steal somebody's car in the parking garage to chase someone out of the arena?
or or Stone Cold filling a car with concrete or running it over with a big like Bigfoot.
Blowing up a bus. We can go on with all of these. That should
Vince
be a
McMahon,
top 10 greatest
Vince
crimes
McMahon
ever
was
committed on television.
Vince McMahon was hated Stone Cold Steve Austin so much that he kept trying to fire him, and yet when Stone Cold would do something that was actually illegal that he could be put in jail for, he never pressed charges. When he attacked McMahon in the hospital and rectally violated him
You know,
on television, he did nothing.
although
Nothing.
that bedpan shot was epic, though.
Yes.
I think that's the first time that rectally violated has been uttered on this podcast.
Well, and
Gary's making history.
that had to be done eventually. So
No, it didn't have to. So yeah, I think that needs to be a top 10 coming up sometime. Top 10 crimes committed on wrestling television.
you know who could have been the biggest heel in wrestling because it was a really good gimmick
Who's that?
if they hadn't hot shotted Edge leaving Judgment Day. What Edge was doing with Judgment Day, the way he was approaching it, he could have been the best heel they had right now. Instead, for some reason, Vince got this idea that he had to get another face. He's got so many
It
people he
was
could
it
have
was
used.
because Cody got hurt. They didn't have another main event babyface.
I don't. It doesn't matter.
But no, it doesn't matter to us. But I think that's what Vince was thinking.
Yeah. Of course, I would have had Edge beat Reigns at Mania
Nah,
like a year ago, but that's just me because he's only got so many matches left. I think he's talking about retiring in like a year.
yeah, he said the next time they're in Toronto, he wants to have his last match, and that's like in August.
Yeah. If or oh, you know, you might be the best heel
Who's that?
for Christian Cage right
Yes,
now.
definitely.
I didn't even
If
think
he
of it.
hadn't
He's one
got
of my
hurt,
favorite. Yeah, he's one of my favorite workers, and I almost forgot. But the way the the heel he is playing right now, it's perfect. It's unrelenting, uncaring, brutal,
mm-hmm.
and he's just doing it. Like he's not winking at the camera. He's not trying to make you like him. It's the exact opposite of that, and people don't like him. People don't like Luchasaurus now, which is
No,
pretty impressive because everybody loved Luchasaurus. People boo Luchasaurus now, which is what you wanted, and that's what he gave you, and you got over Jungle Boy in the process.
yeah, and they're. It seems like they're kind of trying to phase out the name, trying to get
Yeah,
his real name in there a little bit more.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I think Jungle Boy Jack Perry, or Jack Perry, or
or
I think
Jungle
it's a
Jack.
Jungle Jack Perry. I don't.
That sounds like an animal handler, though.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like Jungle Boy, he's talking now, and he's not riding around on Luchasaurus anymore. So I would move to Jack Perry, and then that's who he is. But So yeah, heel wise, I think the best pure heel right now in wrestling is Christian. And if he hadn't got hurt, he would, you know, I would have had him
I'll
was
tell
the
you what.
TNT champion,
Well,
or I might have actually made him my champion. Well, I probably would have because I love him, but
oh, yeah,
personally,
yeah.
I wouldn't have made him my champion.
That
But
first interim title when Mox had, I told Nars I would have had Christian beat him for that interim title and then take on Punk.
yeah, I would have still had him have um, Luchasaurus as muscle. Christian's always better when he's pulling strings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like in TNA when he had was it AJ and who else? Was it
Tomko.
Tomko?
Yeah, it was Tomko and then like Abyss and Steiner at one point.
Yeah, that was great.
Gotta love TNA.
But yeah, he might be the best heel, and that's just because, and he's not doing anything special. He's just not being nice, and he's repeatedly not being nice, and he's
He's
doing
not
it
even accepted.
purposely, and he's not expecting anybody to like him.
No, it seems like he actually does not want anyone to like him.
Yeah, and I think that's like when Kenny Omega tries to be a heel, it he can't do it. He was trying to be a heel when he came out and was running down Will Ospreay,
Mm-hmm.
and sorry, but when he was running down Will Ospreay, and it didn't work. It just seemed like he was some sort of schoolyard insult, and then another insult, and then oh wait, I'm Kenny Omega, everybody loves me. It
Mm-hmm.
just didn't. The Young Bucks as heels, they wasn't bad, but it was still the Young Bucks. They didn't change their style much in the
No.
ring. That that's my other rule of being a heel. You have to be a talker, but your actions have to follow, and your in-ring work has to change. You can't just keep doing the same stuff. You can't just do 14 super kicks a match and smile
Or
to
you
the
should.
crowd and pose, and you have your work has to follow your persona.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And Osprey's another guy who's working heel in Japan, but he's so over because of how good he is that it's hard to for him to stay a heel.
Yeah, Osprey is one of those guys, kind of the same thing I thought about Ricochet. Less is more because he's going to kill him. One, he's going to kill himself. Just and he's going to blow out his knees. So, but he's also just he's got AEW syndrome where it's just they decide that they're going to throw everything every week, and eventually you're going to see all of it. And
Oh,
with Osprey, I know he's always got something new, but just save some of it.
he has been working smarter lately though. He's not flying around as much. He's doing some more ground based
Yeah,
offense. So he's got that, but then he'll pull out that high flying stuff every now and then. Like when you look at that trios match, it was United Empire against the Elite on Dynamite during the tournament.
yeah,
That's when he was pulling that stuff out because he had to keep up with the Bucks and with Kenny.
yeah.
But
But if I never see another Bucks versus Lucha Bros match again, I don't
yeah, that's kind of
care.
run its
Well,
course.
you know what it is, Mark, and I think you're going to laugh at this because it's the God's honest truth. First time you saw that match, it was basically Jerry Lynn versus Rob Van Dam won. Then every match after that, just like Lynn versus Rob Van Dam, it's the same match, but you add one move.
This is very true.
That's a God's honest truth. Jerry Lynn versus Rob Van Dam after match one, every match they added one spot. and then they proceeded to wrestle each other 19 more times. So, like Young Bucks versus Lucha Bros, first match, it was spectacular, but every match after that, there's like, let's do another super kick here, and then, oh, we'll do a Canadian Destroyer off of this onto this. That's our new spot. But it's not new, it's just an old move in a new spot.
And then they'll say, "Hey, should we do a DDT?" Yeah, but I'll kick out at one.
Why don't you DDT me 5 times in a row and then immediately cover me, even though I've been putting offense on you for 10 minutes, and then you do 5 to me, and then you immediately cover me, and then I'll kick out at 1.5. Because that makes complete sense.
Hmm. Anybody that kicks out of a DDT or a pile driver should get fined $500 every time.
Yeah. No, like if if I had the ear of anybody, or if I had a promotion, that would be my finable offense, or my I'm not booking you anymore offense. Would be, okay, here are your moves you can't kick out of a DDT or a pile driver or a cutter. I would not allow people to just steal moves all the time. You would you would have to like pick your move set and stick with it, not just pull a cutter out in the middle of a match. And I would also have you would have to actually work a match. Like you couldn't just do spot spot spot. Guy kicks out, then he does spot 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 to you. That it's just there's no flow to the match that way. You gotta allow people to breathe with it.
All right. Well, Gary, I'm gonna switch topics here just because we're getting off on our usual tangents, and as
Yes.
fun as it is for me to hear you rail on what drives you nuts about wrestling, then
Yeah.
we got to keep it moving here. Uh, Although it is true when we go to wrestling shows, we're like Statler and Waldorf up in the stands
Yes.
sometimes with some of these matches. So let's get into Crown Jewel here on Saturday. It's going to be it'll be on around noon here, which is prime time in Saudi Arabia, and it's actually a pretty good looking card. I don't know why I'm using my mouse to run my iPad here. Let's see. So let's run through some of these matches, and I don't really see a bad match on here for all intents and purposes. So you got, uh, well, I spoke too soon. Omos versus Braun Strowman. Uh,
That could be horrible.
that could very easily be horrible. It,
Well, as long
it
as they
seems
do
like they're
big guy
rushing
versus
this.
big guy,
What's that?
as long as they do big guy versus big guy stuff, where one tries to slam the other, can't get him up, and then the other one tries to slam the other one, and then eventually somebody slams somebody. That's way.
I'm sorry.
That's what it should be.
Well, you know darn well Braun's going to throw a drop kick.
Well, yeah. It's, it's like
Yeah.
Taker doing Taker doing his sort of flipping clothesline at pay per view. That used to be a flipping clothesline that is no longer.
Then it just became a clothesline.
Yeah, it's just a
So yeah,
clothesline.
I think that match is probably going to be the stinkeroo of this show. And no fault of those guys. I mean, it's really hard to have a competitive match when you're that big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the ones I'm looking forward to is Drew McIntyre and Karrion Cross inside a cage. I think it's good.
No, yeah, I
It's gonna
forgot they were doing that.
I think that's
Yeah,
gonna
it should
steal
be
the
good.
show.
That could be really good.
But the psychology is perfect. They're trying to keep Scarlett out of the ring.
I just wish Cross would stop using a sleep. I don't want anybody ever to use a sleeper hold again for a finish, but that's just my personal peccadillo. I
Now,
just
see, I
don't.
disagree.
But
And
like Cross does, but it would be okay to me if that's what they worked on. If they were doing like rest holds the whole time, or if they were doing nerve holds or something. But Cross does a bunch of slams, so I would rather him use a slam as a finish instead of like just basically a laying down sleeper hold.
I have a precedent that nullifies your argument, sir, and it's spelled with three letters: TAZ.
Uh, yeah, but I never liked that either. So I was like, he's a human suplex machine that finishes people with a submission hold. I never understood it. Same reason I don't understand Hook using it. Oh, I do because it was his dad's finish, but
Well, yeah.
Hook can throw suplexes, so use a suplex as your finish. But
Uh,
yeah, McIntyre versus Cross could steal the show.
Pick me a winner. Who's taking it?
Sentimentally, I would love to see Drew win because I think he's way too talented and got way too much of the shaft during the call it the dead ball era,
The Thunderdome era?
the Thunderdome era. I think he deserves another shot.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I'd like to see Drew also. Plus, if Cross wins, then where's the psychology? Where's the rubber match going to come?
I don't know. I don't know who Cross would go after.
I mean, if he was working babyface, I'd say Gunther because those two would have an awesome match.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could still have him beat Gunther.
Yeah.
I mean, if Drew loses, I would immediately have him go after Gunther,
Oh yeah.
then give the belt and let him run with it.
Even though I'm a huge Gunther fan, so I want to see Gunther hold that title as long as he held the UK title. But I know that won't happen. All right. Next match, Bailey and Bianca. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we've seen it a few times already this month.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
hoping they give it to Bailey.
I
It'll be
would
a
like
good
to see that,
match.
but
It'll be a solid match.
yeah, it's a
Bailey
win-win
does,
for Hunter.
Bailey doesn't have bad matches,
No,
so it'd be almost impossible for that match to be bad.
yeah, the only time you see Bianca have a bad match is when her opponent is not up to snuff.
Yeah, she's too athletic. If somebody can lead her, she'll be fine.
Right. That's where
But
Charlotte is so helpful.
she's not capable of carrying the match herself yet. She will be someday once she gets the psychology down.
That's where I think her and Rhea would be so good because I think Rhea's at that point where
Yeah.
she could kind of run the show a little bit. But that's for another time. Speaking of Rhea, Judgment Day versus the OC. Uh,
Um, I
at a,
think Beth comes back, joins the OC, possibly Charlotte. I don't think it'll be Charlotte,
nah,
but I think they're going to add a woman to nullify Ripley,
right.
and then it's going to be the OC over Judgment Day.
Yeah, it's that's kind of what I'm thinking too. I mean, the Judgment Day needs to heat up a little bit more. Right now, it's basically the Rhea and Dom show, but they
Yeah.
need to get a little more juice on Priest and on Balor. But that's just me. But yeah, I see. Yeah, I like the idea of Beth coming out and helping them, but it makes me wonder about when War Games comes around, who's going to be who's going to be where because they're doing two matches, Survivor Series and War Games, men's match and women's match.
Oh,
So you could either do something with the Judgment Day, or you could do it with Bloodline. Depending on which way you want to go. And my iPad just turned off. There we go. But yeah, so as we get closer to that, we'll see more. But you need. I want to see them get kind of back to that, not to the point that AEW's doing it, but go back to kind of where they were in the Attitude Era with they had some really good groups going that made some very interesting matchups. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't need to be all riding on motorcycles or being the Bariquas, But as much as I mean, they can't all be the Heart Foundation, right?
Can't even all be disciples of Apocalypse.
This is true. So let's see what we got. Tag team title match. Apparently, the Usos can leave the country because they're defending against Butch and Holland for the tag titles. I don't see the Usos losing anytime soon.
Well, I think what they're doing is flying a private plane from America to Saudi Arabia, so they can go that way because the Saudi government's letting them in. They can't go to Canada because Canada
Well,
won't let them in.
I don't think this is real, Dwayne. Dwayne asking, he saw a post about Zeus going in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that's going to happen. I've been wrong before, but I don't think that's going to happen. Let's see, Bobby versus Brock. Uh,
Uh,
no
I want
no stipulation. I think it's just a straight up match.
I want
But I'm
Bobby
loving
to
the build up
destroy.
though.
I worry about Bobby in that matchup because every time he takes that German from Brock, he takes it weird on his shoulder. I know he's
Uh
already hurt doing it once, but if I would be fine with them just getting upset with each other and finding out who was actually stronger and tougher. Because that
on
would, I think, closer than people give it credit for.
Yeah, on Busted
I think if
Open
you
they
have,
had a good idea where they should be in the fight pit at some point.
yeah, I think if Bobby ever got upset, there would be a lot of problems that could not be solved.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That dude is
I
really
wouldn't want
fast.
I wouldn't mess with either one of those guys.
No.
So yeah, I if it was me, I would have this match be a schmaz and a no winner. Just they beat the crap out of each other, then take out the referee or something, and then move on, go to a street fight, then fight pit and be done. And I'd have the fight pit
Or
main
you
event.
or you have them like go off the stage through another stage or something and they're both out.
Oh, that old chestnut, eh?
Yeah, big spectacle for the Saudis and
I'd like to think Hunter's more original than that, though.
yeah, there's only so many new things under the sun though.
This is very true. All right, then the last one we got main event: Roman versus Logan Paul. It's like you said, Roman's not losing anytime soon.
It's going to be longer and better than people give it credit for
Yep.
because Logan's really athletic. He's going to do something stupid and it'll be memorable. Roman's as solid a worker you're going to get. He's going to walk him through it. He's going to hold his hand, and Roman's going to come out as a champion.
I think Logan's going to hit the punch, and he's going to get like a 2 9/10 count out of it.
Yeah,
Just get that really close false finish. But
or
yeah, I think
he'll hit it, and then Roman will kick out, but then he'll hit another one, and then it'll be outside interference, or the referee will be distracted or something.
actually
He'll,
I'm gonna adjust that. He's gonna hit the first one, get the false finish. He's gonna load up for the second one, but before he can throw it, uh, Sokoa or whoever will get up on the apron, and he'll take
yeah,
it. Then he'll turn
yeah,
around and take a spear from Roman.
yeah. We know Sammy won't be there because Sammy is a man of principle.
This is true. He will not be there. But somebody who will be there, Gary, and thank you for the segue. They announced it yesterday. Bray Wyatt is going to be a crown jewel, which makes me think he's going to show up after the main event and get in Roman's face.
Maybe. I think right now they're having him versus himself on promos, though. So.
Or Jeff Jarrett in a top hat.
Yeah, I'm not sure who it is.
It looks like Jeff Jarrett,
But
but
yeah,
it's
I'm pretty
clearly
sure.
Bray's voice, though.
I think it's Bray. Like these promos are just Bray versus himself, but they need to speed it up. It's
Yeah,
dragging a little bit. But having if they strap Bray, I would be fine with that because the work he's done on the mic since he's been back has been incredible,
yeah.
and his work in the ring has never been bad. It's
No, he's
different
always been
than
good.
everybody else, but it's not bad. I would never ever let him be the Fiend again because that character was
No,
just dumb
they killed it.
in all possible
They
ways.
overdid it way too much.
Yeah, he's too unstoppable. He was just whenever you have
Especially
somebody
with the
you
belt
can't,
on him.
yeah, you can't beat somebody. There's no point in having them.
Unless you're Oldberg.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Goldberg.
yes.
So,
Well,
so yeah, I think it's going to be a solid show. I don't think it's going to be like WrestleMania good, but I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah.
Yeah. So Gary, we're going to do something new today. I kind of teased this on socials. It's something that we had discussed on the podcast about 6 months or so ago, and that's establishing a JTR Hall of Fame every week, just putting somebody in just to talk about you know some of the legends here and there. And I even have a I've got a graphic. Look at that.
Look at that.
I know, right?
What do
Be
you
like,
know?
so our first choice, I think, and for or I mean mine, but as we go forward, I'll make it more open to the public, if you will. Is it's kind of the guy that's got to be first for any Hall of Fame for pro wrestling, and that's this guy right there, the eighth
Well,
wonder
yeah,
of the world himself, Andre the Giant.
yeah.
Look at that. He posed for that picture for me personally. He said freakishly. But seriously, how do you start with anybody but Andre if you're doing a Hall of Fame?
No. If he didn't call you boss, though, he didn't respect
If I got him a box of wine, he might.
you, or boxer too. No, yeah, Andre is gonna be in every Hall of Fame just because he's Andre the Giant. I mean, he's the blueprint of the attraction. You had
Yeah,
other guys who had like what who was like Big Daddy over in
in England.
London, England,
Yeah, yeah.
and like Haystacks Calhoun and a few other people
Yeah,
that
Baba.
were like, yeah, Baba, but Andre the Giant was the first person to like be athletic enough and big to actually be intimidating
Yeah,
and be legit enough that people were afraid to cross him and people knew that reputation. So, I mean, he was pretty much a perfect storm.
yeah. If you go back and watch his matches in Japan in the '70s, it's incredible.
When he was young, he
He
could
was
throw
doing
a drop.
leapfrogs and drop kicks and
Yeah,
things like that
yeah,
at 400 plus pounds. And also the first guy that I know of that did a tombstone pile driver.
yeah.
Saw footage of him
Probably.
doing that to Strong Kobayashi in Japan, but they never let him do it in the U.S. I don't think.
Tombstone's one of those moves that's fine until you're sweaty.
Yes,
And then you start to worry about it.
I'll never forget the one that Kane did to the Undertaker at WrestleMania when he like had basically was holding him around the butt, so his head was like below his knees.
Yeah.
It was like, oh shit, he's gonna kill him.
Well, Taker in that first match they had, Taker gave Kane what, three tombstones,
Three, yeah,
and he stuck him on one of them.
yeah. It might have been a receipt.
I remember that
That's how
because
you do it, kid.
Kane's a big dude. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure that was not the. I don't know how Undertaker has knees left after doing tombstones forever.
I think that's why he started doing the choke slam.
Probably, or
Like
the last
I don't want to do a tombstone every night.
the, doing a wedgie bomb after that.
Right?
Had to
Which
be the
I always
most.
thought was a cool move.
That'd be the most uncomfortable power bomb of all time.
The best
Just
one I ever saw was he did it to Guido on SmackDown. And
Vito took
Guido's
a good bump.
185 tops. So
Dude could bump.
so Taker picked him up, did the wedgie, then like literally walked around the ring with him. Let everybody get a good look at him before he stuck him.
Oh, Guido Maritano.
Classic. Biggest feet I've ever seen. He had Andre size feet.
Oh, did he?
Oh man, it looked like he had water skis on. If
Very,
you really look at him, just
very
because
tight.
like proportionally to the rest of his body, they're massive. And you know what they say about a guy with big feet, Gary? They say,
Big
"Wow,
shoes.
he's got big feet."
Yeah, large shoe.
Yeah,
Has a big sock budget.
yeah. But, so one last thing about Andre before we move on. He was all. I think he was one of the, not one of the first, but one of the biggest like crossover stars in wrestling.
Yeah,
Between wrestling, then he did Bigfoot on $6 Million Man. He did Princess Bride. He did all this stuff. And nowadays in wrestling, there aren't a lot of household names like outside of a John Cena, but everybody knew who Andre the Giant was from almost pretty early in his career. He was getting the word was getting around that much, and he would go on your Lettermans, your Johnny Carsons, and all that whenever they were like in town for those shows. And he never let his multiple teeth get in the way of conducting an interview because he was a little hard to understand sometimes, but that
yeah.
kind of added to his mystique. And one of my favorite T-shirts you own, Gary, is Andre the Giant kindly offering everyone a peanut.
I gotta find that somewhere. It's somewhere.
All right, so yeah, Andre once again, our first inductee into the JTR Hall of Fame, and we're going to do this every episode. We'll have somebody new, but I think he's a good starting point. And with that, and Gary, I might have gotten a little carried away with all of these graphics and things on this on this feed. I'm I'm trying to I'm going all just sports center going on here, and which means it is Tuesday, as you know, which means it's time for Hot 10 Tuesday, brought to you by ProWrestlingTees.com. And that's the kind of businessman I am. I haven't mentioned for JTR merchandise and now JTR Podcast Network merchandise. You can go to ProWrestlingTees.com/JTRPod. Check it all out. We got some cool stuff there, so go and pick out some cool stuff, and we would greatly appreciate it. It helps us keep the lights on, and keep the mics going, even though this one doesn't sound particularly great. But I digress. So our top 10 Tuesday subject today, Gary, and I think I can get some entertaining thoughts out of you on this. Greatest promoters slash bookers of all time. It's very much a subjective list, but what list that I come up with is not. It's you get there's so much to think about. You know, you got to think about, did they draw money? Did they come up with great characters? Did they, were they successful? So I think I covered everything pretty well. And we're going to start with number 10. And our number 10, Vern Gagne from the AWA. Not the most modern thinking promoter, in the history of the business, Gary. But he had some really good stars for a long time that got wooed away by the almighty dollar later on.
Yeah, I agree. He had
Yeah,
a lot of guys came through there, like the Rockers and Hogan and Mr. Perfect, and um, you had weirdo characters like Baron von Raschke and stuff that he actually got over. But
yeah.
yeah, it was very old school,
I mean,
but
look at the Crusher.
he was able to keep AWA alive up in the frozen north for probably longer than it should have been.
Who knows how many wrestlers got pneumonia training in that barn of his up in Minnesota in the
Yeah,
dead of winter. I mean, it's one thing to be an old school guy, but I mean, come on, you're a wealthy man. You can afford a heater. But I like this. So yeah, Vern's number 10. Number 9, I went more the Booker route on this one. Hot stuff Eddie Gilbert for my number 9. He was a booker pretty much everywhere he went and was really good at it. Between Mid South and Memphis and the original ECW, WCW, he was always had a hand in the booking. And I think one of my favorite angles was Mid South when he was managing the Russians. You remember this, Gary?
yeah,
And it's also my favorite Jim Ross moment when they whacked Bill Watts with the shovel and covered him with the flag. Poor old Jr. was having a fit. It was like Jr. Hell in a Cell Jr. But like 10 years earlier. You have another cat with you, I see.
yeah. I have three of them on my lap.
Yeah. Well, mine tried to come make an appearance, but she got distracted. But yeah, so hot stuff I put on there for also he mentored Paul Heyman, which says something.
Yeah,
Like Heyman was his assistant booker for years. But moving on to our number 8, boom, Fritz von Erich, world class. I don't know how
yeah.
much of a world class
Dude,
guy he was, but go on, he booked the Freebirds and the Von Erichs for the
yeah.
80s, pretty much.
His ability to bring money out of that territory was pretty impressive, and get draw for that territory.
Yeah,
I mean, drew how many thousand people when Kerry won the title?
like 40,000, I want to say.
Yeah,
Right.
it's pretty impressive.
But then also he kind of revolutionized global television because he was getting world class on in Israel in the 80s,
Yeah,
and like he in his people created the multi-camera format where they put the cameras up on the apron. So he had a big hand in how wrestling is presented today. Let's see. I am trying to see. There we go. I want to get the where is attendance here. But yeah. So, how is it not saying? Of course, it doesn't say. I'll look back and I'll get back to you on that one. Because God forbid I be prepared. All right, number 7, Easy E, Eric Bischoff. Now a lot of people probably think he should be higher. I do not. I think if he didn't have Ted Turner's checkbook, I don't know how successful he would have been. But for his merits, he did create Nitro and the NWO and all that stuff. So
I mean, he took a company that was doing nothing and was just floundering, and just a few years before, you couldn't even be thrown over the top rope, and turned it into the biggest wrestling company in the world for
yeah,
almost a year.
83 weeks. He's
Yeah.
how long he beat Nitro or Nitro beat Raw.
Yeah. So I mean, just that alone would put him in some sort of Hall of Fame at some point. I mean, he drew with a company that nobody thought you could draw with guys that
Yeah,
Vince didn't see enough in anymore to keep. But but when you look at it too, you can also look at it in the he wrang that sponge dry and then didn't have another idea.
yeah,
So, but if he needs to be in a top 10 just because of what he was able to do
yeah.
within those 83 weeks.
You gotta wonder if he would have been successful in buying WCW in 2001. What would have happened? That just money didn't happen. And Vince swooped in, and changes the whole landscape there.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think Bischoff is in the WWE Hall of Fame, which makes sense. And another guy who's in the Hall of Fame is our number five, number six, Eddie Graham from Florida. You know, mentored Dusty Rhodes and Bill Watts in how to book, and kayfabe cousin of superstar Billy Graham. And he also gave
Uh,
the role Kevin Sullivan.
yeah, Eddie. He he started at Florida Championship, right?
Yeah, and he
That
ran
was
it for 25 years. I want to say.
yeah, that there was there's quite a few actual pretty good angles that came out of old Florida.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But,
The Yellow Dog with Barry Windham, and the infamous Brody Luger cage match was in Florida under Eddie's watch.
uh, what was it? The was it not Steve Kern? Oh, I
What
can't
now?
remember
Stan
the
Lane?
gimmick match. The series of matches they had with the guy who's I just saw it on Tales from the Territory. And I can't remember which wrestler it was, but like the guy had death threats. He couldn't leave his house for
Oh shoot,
months.
I forget.
But but yeah, they had
I
some
think
really good angles.
yeah, he's a really creative booker, and yeah, like I said, he taught Dusty Rhodes everything he knew about booking. So
The
it's
throws.
it's a real teach a man to fish kind of situation there.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So number five. There you go, Paul Heyman. Nobody did more with less than Paul Heyman in ECW on the kayfabe. He was everybody knows he was taking a little bit of money from Vince. But just
I've
the
I've,
stuff that
al-
he did
I've
though.
often wondered if he would have had like Bischoff's payroll, like just the ability to pay the guys and the ability to like survive some ups and downs. But I don't think they would have pushed the envelope as far as they did then. He would have just hired bigger names. So
Yeah.
like, but then again, as much as I loved ECW, especially now when I watch it, I I kind of look at it with disdain just because I always thought, well, it changed wrestling, but it did, but not all for the better.
Yeah.
I mean, because all the chair shots, all the gimmick matches, and that's when all the wrestling started, where you could hit somebody with 19 moves in a row and then they're going to kick out. And but Hall did that because nobody had ever done that before, and he was smart enough to realize he had to stand out.
Yeah.
And besides all that, he had some of the more involved storylines in wrestling. I'll never forget. Well, Tommy Dreamer was involved in like 19 of them at the same time usually, but
Yeah.
Tommy versus Raven versus Mikey versus, and then he would be wrestling Funk. What was it? Okay, it was Dreamer and Spicoli were feuding at the same time. Dreamer and Raven were feuding, and then I think Funk came in at the end of that feud, and then I think the feud with uh, Brian Lee was somewhere in there, right?
Lee was he was feuding with Lee and Raven at the same time in '96.
Yeah,
Uh,
but
Spicoli, I think, came about after the Raven feud.
yeah, it might be.
Like he did a run in during that last match with Raven, and then that was the next feud. But that was while he was feuding with Van Dam and Lawler.
Yeah. But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, he did, he did a lot of innovative stuff because he had to do innovative stuff because he didn't have the money that everybody else had to just rest
yeah,
on his laurels.
yeah. He kind of you look at the old cliche: accentuate your positives, hide your negatives, and nobody did that better than Paulie. Because
Yeah,
he, we were talking about Bischoff not being able to hang with Vince, but he, yeah, Paul had no pyro. He had no huge budget for giant arenas or anything like that, and still made ECW one of the more popular programs on TV. So he should get a lot of credit for that. Plus, he's an awesome talker and manager. So I think five is a good spot for him. Our number four, you got the big cowboy Bill Watts from Mid South slash UWF. I think calling Bill Watts an old school guy is kind of on the nose.
yeah,
He, as far as being a promoter goes, I love that. And as much as we were talking about keeping kayfabe going, if he heard about a babyface and a heel even staying in the same hotel, they would both be fired. If wrestlers lost bar fights, they'd be fired.
yeah.
If they weren't, they'd be
Uh,
fined. Watts
well,
didn't fuck around. He didn't take any shit from people.
it's one of those things, man. You're
He was
gonna
pretty
be a tough
salty.
guy. You gotta be a tough guy.
Yeah, and Bill's definitely a tough guy. But he he's a guy I'd love to see write a have written a book. I don't think he'll ever do it because he's getting up there. I mean, the next best thing is JR's book. The first one when he actually talks about his time with Mid South. But it's such a weird time in the late '70s, early '80s for wrestling because Mid South was you had to drive 400 miles a night to get from one town to the next, and then you'd be playing for the Superdome at the whenever the big show was. But he had his TV that he did out of whether it was the Irish McNeil Boys Club or the Fairgrounds or whatever. It was really good, and it was for not a whole lot of people in the building. It was like one side of the building had bleachers, and the rest of it was all like wide open with the dressing rooms and everything. And they put on some like with JYD and Orndorff and DiBiase, Duggan, all those guys in the early days, and he made all those guys huge stars before they even got to Vince McMahon. You know, and then of course Vince kind of took him above and beyond. Well, he didn't shake up Duggan too much, but DiBiase got the fresh coat of paint, he got the
Yeah.
huge heel run. But for one, I think DiBiase's Mid South run was better all around than his WWF run as far as work
Yeah.
rate, not
Deep,
success.
oh yeah. DiBiase's Mid South run was. I mean, one of these days we'll have to do. Uh, my one of my favorite top tens would be best wrestlers to. Well, you probably already done it. Best wrestlers not to win the title,
Yeah, I
win
think we've
the
done it. I'll have
title.
to go back and look.
But
Glenn
like
will know.
DiBiase is always in my like top three of that because he
Oh
was
yeah,
just
absolutely.
insanely good at all facets of wrestling, and I don't understand how you have that guy and never put a title on it. And I know it was in the era of Hogan and Andre, but man, I mean, that's just a great guy for Hogan to chase.
Oh yeah, he could
Or
have been their Flair.
or how like Jake Roberts never got a world title. I know he had issues, but I mean,
They couldn't
as
give him the
hot as
Intercontinental title.
yeah, but I mean, he never had the world title.
I mean, he never had any title, but I mean, very least put the IC belt on
Oh, he didn't have any title, did he?
him. No, never did.
How did he never have the IC title?
Honky Tonk Man had to have a run.
Oh, he talked man. He had to have a run. Yeah.
But my personal favorite DiBiase moment was actually in Mid South. The match with Flair on TV when he got busted open.
Yeah.
They took him to the back, put the big compression bandage on, like the Spirit of '76, and then he comes out and like in Murdoch brainbusters him on the floor, which is all the while Jim Ross is losing his mind. But yeah, just finish up on Bill Watts. That's just the kind of stuff to watch that he could really get a small crowd to sound like a giant arena when he wanted to
Yeah, he was
on
good
TV.
at that.
All right, number three. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. Vincent J. McMahon, Vince Senior, the founder of the WWF, and yeah, he's the guy that's responsible for the rise of San Martino. Uh, made Bob Backlund the world champion for 5 years, and yeah, sold out Madison Square Garden how many times in 40 years? 35 years, give or take. But he was like the quintessential like wrestling promoter back then. Just no delusions of ever being on television. Never wanted to cut a promo. Never wanted to have a match. Unlike his son. And yeah, he was perfectly happy to stay in the wings. Just running the show. And it was as weird as it is to say. It's his company. His WWF in the '70s was very similar to the AWA, just for how much it was based on sport. You know what I mean? It wasn't as character driven as when Junior took over. You doing all right there, Gary?
Yeah, winding down though. To be honest,
Yeah.
my head.
For those of you who don't know, Gary is he's being a real trooper for me today. He's got a bit of a migraine, so I'm trying not to talk too loud, but I don't think I'm succeeding.
Oh, it's just the brightness of the light and stuff is more. But
I got you. Well,
for most of it,
We got a couple more, Gary. Then I'm gonna let you get out of there and go and be well. But
we'll do better next time. I'll set up the light and use the laptop or use this again.
yeah,
And we'll have lights and we'll have more of a format.
yeah. And eventually we're gonna be actually in a studio together once
Yeah.
once that gets all worked out. Hopefully next month. But we'll have to see about that. All right, number two. You got Dusty. You gotta have Dusty number two, right?
Yep.
This
That's the rules.
the bold with been the War Games and Starcade, all the stuff that he did in Florida. Just makes me wonder what would have happened if Vince would have let him like in on the creative process when he went to work for him in the '80s.
I don't I don't understand Vince like his motives for some things because you get Dusty and you know it had to have been punishment. That whole run. And punishment for what? Because he was a success outside of the WWE system. I don't get it.
I don't
Because
know.
he was
I
one
don't
of
know if
the
I
hardest talents on the planet. He could do everything, and you just wasted him just because made him wear polka dots. Because I don't. But as a booker and promoter, yeah, Dusty was because Dusty was smart enough to realize that it was okay to book himself at the top. And a lot of people look at that as egotistical, but he knew his own value. And he knew what he can do, and he knew who he was going to be able to put over.
Yeah, and going back to his run with Vince, I don't know if I buy the punishment angle. I mean, he wasn't never going to be world champion because, like you said, it was Hogan's era there. But every feud he was in, he wound up coming out on top on, whether it was Boss Man or Savage. And remember, he wasn't there very long. He was only there for about a year and a half, give
Yeah,
or take. And he got his son over. He got he got Sapphire over.
yeah.
Good old Juanita.
Oh,
And
Sapphire.
Dwayne, yeah, you said surprised you didn't have anyone out of Memphis on your list. I was close. I thought about having Jerry Jarrett on there, but I couldn't remember how to do the impression. This made
I,
famous by Bruce Pritchard.
I don't think although Memphis had some huge TV ratings,
Mm,
I without the Kaufman Lawler angle, I'm not sure if they would be talked about more than like Smoky Mountain.
yeah, I mean they were huge in Memphis, but they were very underutilized anywhere else except
I
for
mean,
when Andy Kaufman was there.
they had a gigantic TV following in Memphis.
Yeah,
Like if you lived there, you watched Memphis wrestling.
and
It was crazy.
Elvis was a fan.
Yeah, Elvis was a fan. Like everybody just people would come out of the fields, they would do whatever it was, and they would come and watch Memphis Championship Wrestling, which is an impressive feat. But without Kaufman Lawler, I'm not sure if you have anybody really remembers. And they couldn't keep that promotion running even after they had that gigantic angle. So,
Yeah. All right. So we have one more, Gary. I'm going to give you one guess who it is.
the guy who recently retired.
You mean this guy?
Yes.
Vincent Kennedy McMahon Jr. Say what you want about his personal issues or his life or any bad decisions he's made that led to his retirement. Uh, he, shit, he went global when nobody was going global, when nobody even thought about it.
Yeah. He he took so many risks and got paid off. Got he is the poster boy for risk reward.
Yeah,
He's like the later in his career he got, the more out of touch he got. But early in his career, he was just just like, I almost want to say he wasn't ahead of the curve, but he was just slightly behind it. Like because he knew what he could, like he never went stepped out of like something where he didn't have a grasp. Like he didn't try to do WrestleMania before he knew he could do the closed circuit television stuff and actually get it broadcast everywhere. He didn't like try to like do some sort of weird TV deal with like a major network. He knew what he could do, and this was a new thing, but he also realized that people would buy it. And then with the other WrestleManias, and he looked at like the success that Memphis had with Lawler and Kaufman, and what was that? All the manias. You had 14 celebrities. You know, you had Mr. T in a match. You had Cindy Lauper bringing people to the ring. You had Alice Cooper, you had Liberace. You had all these. He he knew that then mainstream and wrestling could mix, and then he looked at, it's like, okay, what else can we do? Oh, well, I we can do cartoons. We could do this. We could do that. We can merchandise. We can, and it almost bit him in the butt in the '90s because he was running him, like he was the only game in town. WCW kind of bailed him out by being WCW, giving
Forced
him
him to go
competition.
back.
And that was probably when he was at his most dangerous and most creative, was in that attitude era, because he was once again risk reward, nothing left to lose. If he lost everything. And he just decided he wasn't going to do that. So, yeah, Vince, by far, greatest promoter of all time.
And biggest carny of all time. We'll just say it.
Biggest what?
Biggest carny.
Oh, yeah.
He was the ultimate
Yeah,
carny.
Cole Carney.
But yeah, he literally bet the house on the first WrestleMania. And
Yes, literally.
they said if that was a failure, they would have had to shut down. They wouldn't have been able to recover.
From
So
what I
it
heard, he
worked.
was living in a trailer. Like he had
Yeah,
piled all the money back into the business. He was living in a trailer with Linda, and because he wasn't taking
working out of
hardly
the
any of the
trailer.
money from the business. So yeah, he bet everything on WrestleMania, and it paid off.
Yeah.
I would
All
say
right. So
like,
that.
so like, I guess if I had the ability to honorable mention, it would be like a duel Inoki Baba.
Yeah, I almost had Inoki on there just for New Japan itself.
And the only
Jim
reason
Barnett
I
would have
would,
been on there. You know.
yeah, but like Inoki and Baba, I always put them kind of together because without the other one, I don't think they would succeeded as well as they did, because I think it was that competition that spurred them,
Yeah.
and it was their promotions were different enough, but man, they did almost go under a few times. So, and All Japan's still not. I don't think they're doing great, but they're still around. So I mean, that's why I would put them on honorable mention, because they've been around a long time. All Japan and New Japan have been around a long time. So
Yeah. And yeah, there's a few honorable mentions you could put on there. Jim Barnett's one. Paul Bosch, of course, from Houston. Uh, Even going to the Little Bells in Los Angeles. You know, there's if you
who
go back
was
to
the
that
guy
old
who
school
started?
period.
Who was the
Huh?
guy who started UWF? Herb,
Oh, Herb
uh,
Abrams. He
Herb.
would not be on my list. Yeah, talk about going down in flames, man.
Oh,
Oh,
that that was
but just
awful.
yeah. Anybody that
That
hasn't seen the UWF episode of Dark Side of the Ring, I suggest you do it if you
they
want to
used to
really
have
have your mind blown.
UW. They used to have UWF wrestling on ESPN
Uh huh.
a few years ago at like it'd be like 2 or 3 in the morning. But they also had AWA. It would be AWA and then like UWF. But I remember UWF. It was always oh, what was his kid? Bruno's kid,
David San Martino.
David San Martino. Yeah, David
Yeah.
was there, I believe. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was awful.
And I think Global was after UWF, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's right. Yeah. So there's plenty of choices. Herb Abrams not being one of them. But
No.
yeah. So I think that's a good spot to wrap up, Gary. Thanks for powering through for us here. And like I said, the next one will be we'll be able to see your shining face a little more because you'll be able to
Yeah,
stand light.
and we will have a more definitive timeline.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a watch along. You know, I learned, Gary, that recording a watch along for a podcast is way better when it's not just one person doing it. Because that was our last episode. I did Halloween Havoc, but I didn't have this all figured out. So I just, hell, I'll just do it on YouTube. Just nobody who doesn't like watching me just sitting watching a computer screen on YouTube for 3 hours. and talking about wrestling.
Mm.
If
Well,
anybody watched that whole YouTube feed, I will give them $5. Just one person, the first person, not everybody. 'Cause I don't want you guys to break me. All right, so Gary, we will do this again soon, sir. Hopefully, about 2 weeks. Our usual timeline. And for those that don't know, Gary and I are an acoustic rock juggernaut called the Third Wheels. We play once a year. Hopefully, more coming up.
yes.
So you can check us out on Reverb Nation, and if it's still a thing. And yeah, there's some stuff on YouTube. So if you feel inclined, check that out. Next week, like I said, we'll be back. Who knows? We might do a watch along. We might. Who knows? We'll figure it out. And then yeah. So until next time, prowrestlingtees.com/JTRpod for all your Jumping the Rail merchandise. Help us keep the mics on. Uh, Twitter at JTRpod. Instagram at Jumping the Rail. This will be dropped on Thursday on all your podcast platforms: Apple, Audible, Podbean, Spotify, and yeah. So I think that just about covers it. So for Gary, this is Redmond, and I want to remind you all that life is hard, so work stiff. See you later.